from there.
Welcome, everyone. We are just going to give a couple minutes for people to join the room, and then we'll get started. So get settled in.
I think I saw someone had their hand up already. Was it Kimberly?
Yes, the session will be recorded, Rochelle. So it is actually being recorded right now. So. All right, I think we will get started. The number seems to be staying at a nice steady pace, but we'll welcome anyone else who joins us. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Master of Education, Workland School of Education, Creating a Strong Application Information Session. Great to see a good attendance here. Just to introduce myself, my name is Lisa Llewellyn. I'm the manager of graduate programs in education, and with my co-host here, Dr. Rana Mosher, who's the director of professional programs. The two of us have been hosting a number of sessions since the beginning of January to provide information about our two Master of Education pathways. And this is the final session of what we've been holding, and we are happy to have two people who will be providing the information for you this evening. So you get to listen to different voices if you've been part of these sessions already. So I'd like to welcome Stacy Goliath, who's our team lead and also a graduate program administrator within our office, and Dr. Patricia Daniluk, who is a graduate program director, as well as a professor within the graduate programs in education. So welcome to the two of them. If they would like to later when they start to give a little bit more of an introduction, they're more than welcome to. And as we move in, we also do, next slide please, Stacy, want to also acknowledge the land that we're on. So most of us here are located in Calgary, the city of Calgary in Alberta. For those of you who are not in Calgary, or maybe not even in Alberta, or not even in Canada, please take a moment and ground your feet or your hands, and if you have a window, look out the window and just acknowledge the land that you're on and the area around you. For those of us in Calgary, we would like to just acknowledge that we live on the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising of the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, which includes the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. City of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. To get started, we do have what is called this is a webinar. So there's a Q&A section, but there's also a chat area. So you're more than welcome to, if you're able to access the chat function, which I think Rochelle was able to, so it seems like other people should be able to. So please do introduce yourself in there. So put your name if you like, if you've kind of zoned in on a topic that you're interested in, or even if you've zoned in on which MEd you're planning on applying to, go ahead and add it into the chat box. And as well, if you want, identify where you are coming from into this Zoom webinar. And we'll give you some moments there and we'll take some time to introduce ourselves. And just so you know, as I mentioned earlier, this is a series of information sessions. And for those of you who may have been like, what, there's been more and I missed them? Not to worry. We have recorded the majority of them. So you're welcome to visit the website, so Graduate Programs and Education website, and access the recordings for all of these or majority of these sessions that are listed here. If after listening to some of the recordings, you still have some questions about a topic, please do reach out to the academic coordinator or the graduate program administrator who is listed on the website of the topic you're interested in. This session is being recorded, so if you have to leave early or if you know of somebody who really wanted to attend but was unable to, please know that we are recording it and it will be posted on the website as well, so you can have access to this. And now, without further ado, I'm actually going to hand over the session to Stacy and Patricia, and they will be able to give you some great information on how to really build that application and create it so it's a strong one. And so hopefully most of you have already delved a little bit into the application already and are just waiting to finalize some finishing touches on it and then ready to press that submit button. So Stacy, Patricia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm just going to walk through the agenda for today and just point out the pieces that I'll be talking about and that Patricia will provide some information on. So as we walk through the application, I will talk about post-secondary education and the information that's required, transcripts, test scores, and referees. And then Dr. Patricia Daniluk will walk through the program-specific questions and provide you with some more insight on information that we're looking for those particular questions. And then after that, we have a question and comment time for us to address any questions that have come up. So post-secondary education, the instructions in the application say to list the post-secondary institutions you've attended, starting with the most recent. You must list all post-secondary education regardless of whether you've completed that degree. This includes any short-term enrollment, courses taken for upgrading, transfer credit, and any previous attendance at the University of Calgary. In terms of transcripts, applicants must submit an unofficial transcript for all post-secondary institutions listed. That also includes transfer credit courses. So even if the transfer credit is listed on the transcript for the institution where the degree was awarded, a transcript from the institution where the transfer credit was completed is required. So that's an understanding of how that works. In terms of submitting transcripts, for official transcripts, to finalize your admission, you must submit one official transcript for all institutions and degrees, institutions attended and degrees completed. You might have to submit a degree certificate if it is not clearly stated on the transcript that you were awarded that degree. Transcripts can be submitted to gradtranscripts@ucalgary.ca or by mail to the Faculty of Graduate Study. In terms of unofficial transcript, for initial evaluation purposes, you can submit one copy of your unofficial transcripts with the grading scale / transcript legend for all post-secondary institutions to your online application by the application deadline. On the slide, I've listed the items and the pieces that need to be visible on your unofficial transcript. So sometimes we've received screen captures, and it doesn't include the student name or the faculty. So this is a list of all the information if you do decide to submit an unofficial transcript that must be present on that document for us to conduct that initial evaluation. In terms of test scores, for applicants who choose the following citizenship, study permit, work permit, refugee, or other, those applicants are required to submit test score information. And for that test score information to be considered official, it must be received by our department, the Faculty of Graduate Studies, from the testing, directly from the testing agency by the application deadline. And for this application cycle, that would be March 1st. Information that's supplied in the application online is considered unofficial until the official document is received by that application deadline. And also, in terms of English language proficiency, it must be taken within the last 2 years to be considered an official document. Also, for applicants whose first language is not English, you can be exempt from ELP if you meet the following criteria. And that's an applicant who has a bachelor's degree, a minimum of 3 years, or a graduate degree from an institution where the sole language of instruction was English. And on our website, under the future students, under the admission details, there's a link to the World Higher Education Database, WED, where you can check to see if your institution is listed there and that you would be ELP exempt. For those applicants who choose citizenship of Canadian permanent resident, or you indicate that you've obtained your degree and your credentials from a Canadian or US institution, you are not required to provide ELP and ELPTs. And the next section is references and referees. So an appropriate referee is written by an independent individual who can report on your academic ability and qualifications or provide an assessment of your background and capabilities with respect to the prospective program. References that are not acceptable: a reference provided by a friend, family member, colleague, people currently registered in a graduate degree program, or a general reference not written in support of your application to the particular program. Also, in terms of academic versus professional references, if you are currently registered in a graduate degree program at the University of Calgary, or if you recently completed a graduate degree program, one reference should be from your program supervisor. Unless you've been out of school for more than 4 years, at least one or preferably all of the letters should be academic. In terms of how to prepare your referee, you should ensure that the referee that you choose will provide you with a strong reference. You should also confirm that the referee is available during the application period and that they've provided you with an active institutional or business email that they will be checking regularly. Also, we suggest that it is a good practice to, if you can meet with your referee or have a conversation with them about your interest in the particular program that you're applying to, so that they're able to understand the information that you're requiring from them, and then they can make the connections once they get the link to provide your reference online. Okay. The next section is the program-specific questions, and I will pass the mic over to Dr. Patricia Danwick, and she'll walk you through this section.
Thank you, Stacy. Hi, everyone. So I've taught in several of the certificates, so I'm going to tell you a little bit tonight about what we look for when we look at the applications. So in the first year, when you're applying, you're asked to identify your first choice of intended topic for your diploma program. So there might be a lot of certificates that you're interested in, but you need to choose your first choice. And then you're also asked to identify your second choice. Now, the reason for that is because occasionally a certificate would not go ahead because it didn't have enough enrollment, but that doesn't happen too often. But that's why you're asked to indicate your first and second choice when you apply. In the second year, you indicate that you have completed or are currently completed a graduate certificate topic. And you once again identify your first choice for your second certificate and a second choice. And when you finish the second year, your second certificate, you would get a graduate diploma. And then in year 3, you would enter into the research stage. And you would, when you're applying for that part, you would indicate that you've completed a graduate certificate and a graduate diploma. And you would list the topics that you've completed or are currently completed. And that's how you would begin your research year. So as many of you have already noticed, or if you've been in other sessions, there's both MED Interdisciplinary program and an MED Specialist route. So there are 2 options for the specialists. One is in leadership and one is in adult education. And of course, all this information is on the website, and we'll probably talk more about that later. But the specialist program, you identified the topic that you are interested in pursuing. So in that case, it would be one of those 2 topics. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about specific questions and how to respond to them. So in question 3, you're asked to write a statement of intent. So the first question you're asked is, what are your reasons for pursuing this graduate program? And then the second question is, how is completion of the program related to your desired career path and academic goals and or employment objectives? So your statement of intent should be around 300 words. And what you want to do in this section is explain why you're interested in a specific specialization. So, you might want to describe your passion for this area and maybe some experience that you have in this area. How it perhaps how it aligns with your background, your undergraduate degree, or some work that you're doing, or experiences that you've had, or future learning plans. So you have to be careful here in writing your statement of intent. So in other words, you don't cut and paste from different programs. Some of you might be applying to different programs, and you might write out 300 words for one program. And we've seen applications where that's just copied and pasted into the application, and your reviewers can tell that that's happening. So if you want, what you want to do is make sure that it is specific to the program that you're applying to, when you explain these things, your reasons, your passions, how this is related and aligns to your future plans. So another thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you're writing in complete sentences and not point form. And look at your grammar and your spelling and your organization of thought. So you want to read it through like you would an essay, for example, and make sure that it flows nicely. So that's just a few tips on how to complete your statement of intent. And we can go on to the next one. Thanks, Stacy. So program-specific question 4 asks you, please list any academic awards, achievements, honors, or other distinctions that you have received. And sometimes you have received some kind of an award or achievement in your academic career. So maybe in your undergrad program or in a course that you took, you might have received an award. You might have received some kind of achievement from your workplace, or some other volunteering activity or something like that. And you want to make sure you include those kind of things if you have them. So we all have something at work that we're proud of or that we think we've accomplished. So ensure that you write something in each section. It could be, just so I've been working with this group since this year or something like that. So be sure to fill that part in. And for question 5, it says, please list any academic or professional publications, scholarly or professional conference presentations, or other scholarly activities that you have completed. So of course, scholarly publications, meaning peer-reviewed publications, or conferences that you've presented at, and a lot of people who are teachers have presented at conferences, or other scholarly work that you've done, perhaps some research that you did at work, or just a blog that you write, or something that you wrote for work. So it doesn't have to be a peer-reviewed scholarly publication. It could be, something like a handbook that you've written for work, something like that. That all is important, that's in your application. And then question number 6 asks, please list any professional employment or career experience that you have that relates to your chosen program of study. So for that part, you'll want to showcase how your work or maybe your volunteer experience relates to your chosen program of study. Anything, try to write something in that section so that we get a better idea of who you are, why you're interested in pursuing this program. Okay, thanks, Stacy. So question 7 says, please identify the academic and professional organizations that you are affiliated with or hold membership in. And if you're a teacher, of course, you probably belong to the Alberta Teachers Association. And then you might also belong to some other organizations that you're involved in. For example, when I came to Alberta, I had 2 different teachers' licenses. So I would put those 2 down. And you might belong to some other organizations like a group for teachers or something like that you want to put down. And if you're not a teacher, that you probably have other organizations that you're involved with, either through your volunteer experiences or on your free time or through your work. And question 8 says, please add other information that you feel would be important for the admissions committee in evaluating your graduate application. So it could be credentials, other information that you've already applied, that you've already provided on the form, but you want to highlight in this section. So again, you don't have to write something in this section, but if you want to draw the evaluator's attention to something, be sure to include it in that part. Okay, so now we have time for questions and comments.
I think there's a few questions still in the Q&A that we maybe haven't responded to. And Lisa, Dale, I think there's one there that says that you wanted to respond live. It was around the letter
I
of
just put it in
intent.
the chat, the regular chat. I was just finished.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you muted out on us there, Lisa.
Sorry, I just responded in the other chat.
Okay. So just in case people aren't in there, Lisa had just said that if for some reason you have to, the program that you were most interested in isn't able to run and you're looking at your second choice, you do get a chance to rewrite your statement of intent or letter of intent so that you can draw a connection to that second program as well.
That makes sense. Well, lots of good questions.
So Kimberly asking about a language program through Western. I guess, Kimberly, that depends on if it was a for credit course or a not for credit course. And yeah, if your GPA was a little bit lower, it's always good to kind of address that. I think that's something that if you find that there's something in your application that maybe stands out as not everything you'd want it to be, then yeah, instead of leaving people guessing and having the evaluators try to understand the context around that, just take it on and tell the story. Like, this is what was going on at that time. This is the situation now, and here's how I feel confident it'll be different in my studies at this point. So yeah, anything that you think might not be well understood by the reviewers, just give them the information, help them get to know you a little bit through that information you provide.
There's maybe Stacy or Trish, you can clarify with regards to references. So there seems to be a confusion with professional versus academic references, and some people asking about who could be a reference or anything. So maybe one of you can just verbally provide some clarification on that. So we do accept professional references because we know this is a professional degree. So, and some of you may not have been in university or college or post-secondary in the past 10, 15 years. So no expectation you would still be in contact with your professors from then, but a little bit more elaboration could be good on that. Thanks.
I
Yeah.
think typically, oh, sorry, did you
Go
want to
ahead,
jump
Stacey.
in?
No,
I was
go
just
ahead.
going to say that typically we tell our applicants that if they have a supervisor or someone that's had oversight over their work, that's the type of person or professional reference that you're looking for, because they're able to, at some point they've done some evaluation in terms of your skills, and so they would be able to answer those questions appropriately.
Good point. So it's not your friend, for example, when they say professional references, it's not your colleague that you've been working with, unless they're supervising you, for example. Yeah, so I know when I went to apply to graduate studies, it had been many years since I'd been in university, and yeah, I couldn't track down my professors. So you might want to rely on more on professional references, and that's totally fine.
There's another question here is, we don't need to answer all of the program specific questions. And I'm sure one of you probably can answer that, but it would be good if you provide some kind of response. Yes.
Yeah. So it would be good if you replied, if you wrote something in each question. So read the question and think about your own experiences and then write something, because that gives the evaluators a better sense of who you are and why you're applying to the program. As Lisa said earlier, instead of guessing, and Rhonda mentioned, because that's what we're left to do sometimes when we look at an application and we see that maybe there was a lower GPA, for example, when you were 18 or 19, and now you're older and you're maybe even in the middle of your career and you're applying and you've had all these accomplishments and things like that. So if you don't write something under each area, we kind of are left to guess what you're thinking. It's like putting pieces of a puzzle together. You might not have this piece, and so you're kind of saying, well, it looks like this and this, but it's much better if you fill in those gaps for us.
And I think too, with reviewing the questions, we really want the applicant to think about these questions in their professional context. The language might seem academic at times, but really think about how this question might apply to you in your professional work, in your professional context, and then provide us with as much information as you can.
Okay.
just looking through the questions here. If somebody has any questions, if they wanted to ask a question, please do raise your hand as well. We like hearing other voices and seeing other people too.
So I see someone is saying that my current assistant principal, did you already respond to that one, is completing her 3rd year of this program. Could she be one of my references? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would be fine.
Yeah, no, we've had that question around with a graduate student, if that they're acceptable or not. And in general, FGS looks at that type of status as on the same line as a friend or a colleague, but in the case that it's someone who has oversight and would be the best reference, it is something that you can bring forward and use that person as a referee.
So someone's asking about 4 years out of school. Would 2 professional references be okay? And yeah, sure, that would be fine.
Yeah.
If it's your best of reference, then that's fine too. It's just a guideline that if you have been in school and you can reach out and you do have that relationship and it would be a good reference, then we highly recommend you choose those ones. But if you do have a professional reference that is better suited, then that's acceptable as well.
And Alexander, you have a question. Your hand is up, so feel free to turn your mic on and ask away. Oh,
Yeah, I think because it's a webinar that the mics don't work, but please just write your question in the Q&A.
We can allow them to turn on the mic if you want. You can click on the participant's name and allow them to turn on their mic if that's what you wanted to do.
there we go.
When they raise their hand, yeah.
So Alexander, it sounds like you should be able to turn your mic on now.
I think I'm talking now. Does this come? Can you guys hear me?
We're together.
Okay, I'm with Alexander. This is Anna. I just have a question about on the application for question 6. Do we want to list our work experience just in point form and how it applies to the program that we're applying to? Or do you want maybe more of a written statement explaining our work experience?
No. Okay, so it says, please list any professional career that relate to the chosen program of study. So question 6 is not just a list of all the places you've worked kind of thing. It's more about how your employment is connected to the program that you're pursuing.
Okay, so would you suggest maybe in paragraph format explaining how each role you've had applies to the program?
Well, I guess it depends on how much work experience you have. So maybe just a couple sentences on, because again, a couple sentences on how your work history connects with the program.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, because for some of us, we've worked, for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think I saw a question about conferring between each of the degrees. So just wanted to highlight and explain how the different steps work. When you're in the MEd Interdisciplinary route, you're applying to the graduate certificate program, and you will need to apply to graduate from that program and apply to each of the different steps within the route. So it doesn't automatically happen. You do have to apply to graduate, and you do have to apply to the next step.
Rochelle, you should be able to use your mic to ask your question now too.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Hopefully my children don't interrupt too much. I had a question about our references. I'm just trying to get a sense of what they're being asked, because for instance, the volunteer work I do is probably more applicable to the program than my actual supervisor. So I just was trying to get a sense of what you're looking for in a reference. Thank you so much.
So in the references, then they ask you how you know this person, and then you're asked to rate them in certain areas, and they're given a couple of options on how to rate you, you know, as the highest being outstanding kind of thing. And so in your case, then you would probably include a reference from the organization that you're volunteering at.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Sorry, I have my hand up. I think I'm unmuted.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I have a question about the English proficiency. So when it says, what's your first language? English isn't my first language, but it's my primary language. So I don't really use my first language anymore. But it's still not my first language. So is it best to put English as my first language just to avoid the English proficiency, or should I still list it as a second language? And then I don't know if there's a risk of having to defend my English proficiency.
That's a bit of a tricky one, I think. Lisa or Stacy or Lisa, what are you thinking on that one?
Sorry, can you repeat? So
I like my first language
institution?
is so my first language is Slovak, but I don't really speak Slovak anymore. I've lived in Canada for over 20 years. So my primary language is English, but in the application it says, what is your first language? So it's not primary, it's first. So I just wasn't sure if I should list English as my first language to avoid the question of my proficiency, or if I should still list it as my second language. And then I don't know if then I'll be asked to demonstrate English proficiency.
I think you should put that my first, maybe just say exactly what you said. First language is not English, but I've lived in Canada, worked for, been in Canada for 20 years and spoken English. So that would be, then we would know that you're competent in English.
And also the institution that you attended for post-secondary, was that in English and in Canada?
Yeah, it was like a U of C.
Yeah, so I mean, you've already been kind of exempt from that category.
Okay.
Because for people whose first language isn't English, if you've done your undergrad 3 years or a grad program in Canada or an English-speaking institution. So I think irregardless, you'll still meet that requirement and not have to do ELP.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Just answering questions right now through the
Yeah.
chat and the
So
Q&A.
someone's saying that 300 words doesn't seem very long to explain all of these things, and we realize that it's not a lot of room, but just so the reviewers can review many applications, we try to set a bit of a limit on it. And then also it allows you to focus when you're writing that, realizing that you only have that much room. What do you need to tell us about yourself in those 300 words, approximately 300? Again, it doesn't have to be 300, but then again, it shouldn't be a sentence or two either, because that that, you know, kind of indicates you're not taking this too seriously. And yeah, so I see somebody saying that they're leading professional learning with their staff. Would that be a good thing to include under question 5? Yes, for sure. And then you might want to say a little bit more about it under question 6 too. Yes. Okay, so some things you can put in list form, yes. But your statement of intent should be in sentence form, not just bullet points. How quickly will the references be contacted after you're accepted? I'm not sure about that.
Referees, as soon as an application is submitted, the referees will be contacted by the University of Calgary through an email.
Okay.
We do strongly recommend, though, knowing that the deadline is March the 1st, that you do not leave your application to February 28th, because then your referees will not have very much time to be able to complete it, because the system, if there's something that happens with your application, the system may need to do something. There could be a delay in the email that goes to the referees. So please do not leave the application to February 28th, because your referees may not have enough time to submit. And I believe we may have said this, but we might not have. Just repeat that incomplete applications will not go forward for review, and an incomplete application is an application that does not have 2 completed references. So that's an example. So please do keep that in mind when you are getting your application ready to submit. And let your referees know that as well, that the deadline is March 1st.
And I see a question about a poster presentation. So no, you don't have to attach that, but you could reference it for sure. So if you are referencing something, try to indicate it in APA style or some as close to APA style as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just so that we have a clear understanding of what it was, when it occurred, and for what purpose.
Maybe Rana or Trish can answer this question, because I personally have never completed a reference before, but one of you two may have. It says, how long does it take for the referee to complete the reference form? So is your own personal experience of being a referee?
Trish, I don't know what your experience has been. For me, it takes me a bit of time, especially if I really know the person well. And I'm really trying to, incorporate a lot of things I know about them in a succinct way, and a way that represents them. The capacities they hold really well. It can, it takes a little bit of time to write those statements. When I've been asked to be a reference for someone I don't know very well, it doesn't take much time at all, because I don't have a whole lot to say. So I think it varies a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. So for me, I would say probably takes under an hour for me. Yeah, and it's much easier to write for someone you know well, because just things come flooding to you and you can just write them in. But when it's someone you don't know well, you have to look back at what they've done and things like that. And it gets hard to say things with any accuracy. But yeah, give your referees time to complete that. And they might want to put it on a Word document and then put it into the form too.
And a
And one of-
recommendation, oh, sorry, go ahead. One
Oh.
recommendation I do have is that if when you're reaching out to your referee, have your statement of intent written
Yes.
ahead of time, and then you can provide that to them. And that's actually really helpful for them to answer and put more information in, because you've already indicated in your statement of intent what a bit about the program, why you're interested in, what you can bring to it, so they can pull that out of the statement of intent and put it in their answer. Rana, sorry, I think I stole your.
That's exactly what that thing I was going to say. And sometimes too, as a referee, I have appreciated it when, if someone, sometimes I'll say to people, is there something you really want me to highlight? Is there something you think is important for me to include? Because when there's so many things you could say sometimes, especially when the applicant knows their whole package better than you do, it's good to know what the unique piece that they think you might bring. Not that you'd say something that wasn't true, but just to kind of know what they think would be valuable. So if you have something in particular that you want to draw your referee's attention to, don't be shy about doing that. It's perfectly fine just to kind of say, you'd be a really important referee for me. The work we did on this is really something I'd like to highlight. And, maybe there you really saw my problem solving skills or my ability to communicate well, or whatever the example would be. I saw in I think it's in the chat, someone has a question about time commitments. And it's a question we're frequently asked, and it's a very difficult one to answer because everybody has their own work pace and their own style of writing and their own, their own ways of making sense of things. So I was always told that you should anticipate, so if it's at 39 hours of instruction or 40 hours of instruction approximately for a class, that you're looking at kind of tripling that. In my experience, it's maybe not that much. When I talk to students in the program, it's often not that. It's not 120 hours a week, but it is still a significant time commitment. And so you do have to have a plan for that. You do have to be able to say, okay, so, I know for sure I already have a commitment on Wednesday evenings, and so that's not going to be my time. But, on Saturday mornings, I'm going to do this. Tuesday night, I'm going to do this. Like, you just kind of have to work it out and work with your family and friends to make sure they understand your commitments, because this will be new commitments. It'll affect your weekly schedule during this semester, and people need to support you in that, but you have to ask for that support sometimes too, so people know. And it may be that weekly going through the course, it's maybe a lighter load, but you get to the end of the semester and assignments are due, especially if you're trying to write a final paper and you have to go back and reread things, and it's not an even distribution of workload either. Maybe Trish has a way of answering that question that's more helpful.
Well, I was just thinking about the certificate that I designed with Elisa Vandenborn, and so students were reading two articles, scholarly articles a week, and then maybe they'd have a video to watch. So scholarly articles usually, can be 28 pages or so. So how long would it take you to read 28 pages? And then there's something that you have to do for the course each week. So you have to spend some time doing that. So a couple hours for that. And then you meet with your cohort. In this certificate that I'm speaking of, you would meet every week for about 2 hours every week. And so there's that time too. But yeah, it's really important that, as Rana was saying, that you plan your time out once you get the course outline. What are my next couple months going to look like? When am I going to start working on that paper, kind of thing, so that at the very end, it's not all falling apart kind of thing. So yeah, it takes some planning to make it work within your life, especially if you're working full time, for sure. And and as we all know, when you start reading scholarly articles, they're hard to digest at first. And then you get into, the more you do it, the more it becomes natural, and you start to read a lot faster because you know what to expect in the article. First, they're going to have this, then they're going to have this. So yeah, it really would depend how fast you read and how dedicated you are, and the assignments that you're working on, but it takes a lot of planning. So it's a commitment for sure.
So Lindsay McWilliam has patiently been waiting with her hand up. So go ahead, Lindsay.
Hi, thanks, guys. I know you're probably sick of answering reference questions, but I did want to ask my own situation in hopes that it might be applicable to someone else also. I was hoping to use my principal. However, my principal does not know me well at all. He confirmed he would be happy to give a positive reference, but I've been on parental leaves and in and out of schools. So my second reference was going to be the teacher that was assigned to me at the Beginning Teachers Conference as a mentor teacher. And she has now known me for 15 years. So she helped me along and mentored me through my first 3 years of teaching. But by the definitions that you guys are using, we've been learning leaders together, we have taught together. So I was hoping to use her because she can speak to me and is more the type of reference you guys were talking about, that knows me really well. But I guess I'm trying to confirm that might not be a suitable reference. And if you think that, I'm wondering if the system allows you to upload 3 referees, where I could perhaps still include her, but then offer a third, less personal, like my assistant principal referee that would for sure meet the criteria, but wouldn't be able to speak to myself with the same background that my my fellow learning leader reference would be able to.
I'll jump in there. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey.
I was just going to speak to the third references. So with the application, we only accept 2 references. And if your referee, for example, if you wanted to change your reference or there was issues with the link, we could do that. But for this application, 2 references is all that we accept. And then Patricia, were you going to jump in about the
Yeah, I was going to say, yes, that other teacher would be fine, but also I would include a different kind of reference, like your principal or someone who has supervised you.
Perfect. That's a great combo. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
I think I saw in the chat there was a question about unofficial transcripts and official transcripts. So just wanting some clarification if it was acceptable and how that all works. So with the unofficial transcripts, you can submit that through your application once it's submitted. And again, like I said in the presentation, you want to make sure that all of the critical information is there, your name, UCID, your grades for courses, taken and completed, and that it shows your degree awarded and the grading scale. So if all of the components are visible and indicated on your unofficial transcript, then we're able to use that because we use this document to complete your GPA calculation. So that's why we need all of those pieces. But if you do pull an unofficial transcript and it's not a complete document and it's not something that's usable, then we do recommend that you provide your official transcript, because then it's a document we can work with. But if you do provide the unofficial one and we're able to evaluate with that and you are offered admission, then that offer will be conditional on us receiving your official transcripts.
There's a question in the Q&A section that's what kind of assessments can we expect? I don't really know what that is pertaining to. Don't know how to answer that question. Can somebody expand on that a little bit?
Yes, well, there's a wide range, just as those of you who are teachers would know. And we've just done a review, so probably Rana can speak to this even better than I can, but I don't think there's any tests per se. So it's not like when you were doing your undergraduate degree when you had to write a test. So it's more a way to demonstrate what you've learned in the course through writing often, or sometimes you'll be asked to do a video. Sometimes you'll be asked to do a group project, that kind of thing.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Patricia.
I think that's great. We do have one program actually that has little quizzes in it, kind of on going, but very few, no final exams or anything like that. But yeah, as Patricia said, so like papers, creation of digital artifacts, leading discussions in class sometimes. One class, well, I'm thinking of, oh, actually, I think Patricia might have been in community engagement where it was like creation, like a collaborative creation of a mind map, right? Mapping
Yes,
the
that's
field,
right.
photo essays, I've seen those. A lot of the assignments will try to tap into your professional context. So for example, in leadership, some of the leadership programs, there's situations where you might analyze a video for some of the learning theories that might be evident in different kinds of teaching, and then be asked to think about how that might look different if a different learning theory was guiding the idea, or to create a professional learning plan for a teacher that that you might encounter in your practice. So there's all sorts of variations in terms of
Very creative,
yeah.
creative assignments. Yeah, just like in teaching, right? You try to figure out how a student could best demonstrate this knowledge. Yeah, so usually the essays aren't too long, like they're not usually papers of 10 pages or so are not unusual. Sometimes you'll do group assignments where you'll be asked to either partner with another student or work in a group, and sometimes your professor will set up the group. Sometimes you'll be asked to set it up yourself and share the work. And there's a lot of sharing your work with the class to demonstrate your learning and different approaches or perceptions of what you've read and heard and how it connects to your professional role. Yeah.
I saw a question about transcripts and continuing education courses, and if those transcripts need count and should be submitted. So to just provide a little bit more information, in terms of the transcripts and what we're looking for in terms of listing, we want you to list courses that you've received credit for. So when we talk about short-term enrollment, we're talking about institutions that you've attended for a short period of time, but withdrew without earning a credential, a degree for that particular program. So you've taken credit courses, but you didn't complete the program. And courses taken for upgrading, we're referring to courses that you were enrolled in for credit at a post-secondary institution, but were not admitted to a program that was leading to a degree, diploma, or certificate. So when you think of your professional development courses or a content course, if it was one for a non-credit course, then it isn't something that we're looking for you to list, but it might be information that you put in the program-specific questions of something that you've completed or achieved in that particular way.
Well, we are getting close to 7 o'clock, and it looks like we have answered quite a few questions. Hopefully everything that you're looking for. There was a question earlier in the chat about after this session, if you still have more questions, who should you contact? And I think that's good just to remind everyone that on the program page for each of the MEd interdisciplinary topics or the MEd specialist programs, if you look there, you will see the name and email contact information for the graduate program administrator who is assigned to each of those topics or programs. And those are the people to reach out to if you have questions about application processes or transcripts or any of the things that will help you get that application complete and submitted. If you can't find that person on your program page, you can also email the GPE office, so gpe@ucalgary.ca, and it is lovely people like Lisa and Stacy and others who will be on the other end of that and be able to help you. If you have a question about the course and program itself, then you're looking to contact the the academic coordinator, and their name is also on the web pages. So for example, Trish would be an academic coordinator for some community engagement. So if you're interested in that, you could reach out to her. And if you cannot find that person, again, the GPE office or I can help you get connected to the right people to make sure that you get the information. So please don't kind of suffer in silence. If there's something that feels like a little bit of a blockage, then reach out, let us help you get past that. Don't wait too long because you just want to make sure you get things submitted and give your referees time to have everything in on your behalf by March 1st. So please reach out if you need help, because there's a lot of people here who want you to be successful, want you to be able to kind of reach for those scholarly dreams and fulfill your educational goals. So that's why we're here, to help you do that. So,
I was just going to add on to Rana's comment that when you go onto our website, to also look at the future student program page, because that will give you information about your future student, and occasionally the GPA, the graduate programs administrator, might be different on the future student page as opposed to the current student page. So that's just a more direct route. But again, if you connect with anyone in our office, we can always redirect you if need be.
Anyway, thank you all for being here. Patricia and Stacy, thank you so much for leading us tonight. And Lisa, thank you as well. It takes a lot of us to try to get all the questions answered. And Calvin, we appreciate your support through this series. So good luck, everyone. I hope you are able to find all the bits and pieces to pull together to make your application as strong as it can be. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.